All right, how you doing, Mr. Hodge?
I'm real good, Jordan. Good to meet you. Good to meet you, Ryan.
Yes, sir. So our first question is, what? All right. So how can African Americans go about becoming entrepreneurs? What steps do they need to take to be most successful?
That's a great question. My name is Harlan Hodge. I am an entrepreneur. Most people refer to me as a social entrepreneur. My degrees are in social work. I've got a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's degree in social work. I attended Tennessee State University. I've got a degree from University of Missouri St. Louis and a master's degree from Washington University. So my background is in starting nonprofit organizations, my classical background, but I've always been interested in video production, photography, writing, and I used to, my first job in high school was working for a restaurant. I used to bust tables and wash dishes. Yes, and it was hard work, and I went home stinking every day, Yes, but I used to admire the waiters and waitresses because they used to get paid for just talking to people, and they made tips. I was like, they get to go home, smell good, and they got a pocket full of money. I want to do that. And so eventually I started waiting tables, and I said, it's nice to get paid for talking. And so I always wanted to get paid for talking. And so what I did was I consumed a lot of information, and I found myself in demand. I just loved talking to people all the time. And eventually people started requesting and paying me a little bit of money to do it. And so my day job, I did social work, and in my evening job, I worked to get paid. I talked to people and got paid for that. And that was sort of my first experience with being an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
So my advice to anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur is to find what you love and do it for free until people want to pay you. Right?
That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And just a quick little background on what we're trying to do. We're just, our question for our project is how can African Americans create their own opportunities?
Yeah.
So we can open our own doors so we don't have to wait for
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
That's perfect.
So our next question, do you believe education is the greatest contributor to African American success? What else needs to be focused on in addition to this?
So do I believe that education is one of the greatest avenues to success? Absolutely. Education is the pathway to success, but we've got to broaden our understanding of what education is. A lot of people equate education with going to school.
Yes, sir.
Education is not going to school. Education is enlightening your mind. Most people are lazy, so most people need a school to go and expand their minds, right? And that's why we have a public education system, so people can access lots of resources. But actually the greatest resource that we have is our public library system. Anything that you want to learn, you got a library that is within 5 miles of your house, right? So that you can access. That's one of the greatest resources about being in America. And so, yes, education is vitally important, and it's really free and widely accessible to everybody. Okay. So when we talk about being an entrepreneur, when we're talking about independence, and we're talking about living your passion, you first have to fuel your mind and your spirit with good stuff. Yes, right? And then the great thing about us as individuals is we have an opportunity to process that information and then put it out with our own interpretation. And so everything that we are doing in life, everything that you hope to do in life, if you set your eyes on being successful in that place, once you get there, someone else wants to know how you did it.
Yes, sir.
Right? Even graduating from Parkway North is a huge accomplishment, right? So when you're leaving here as seniors, the incoming freshmen need to know what you've done, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have knowledge, information, and education inside of you that can
action.
All right.
Okay. So our next question is just like general kind of hypothetical question. And so like say that a black person and a white person were both up for a job opportunity. Mm-hmm. They both have the same education, same levels of achievement, and same work ethic. Who do you think would be most likely to receive the job?
This is a really good question. who would receive the job between a white person and a black person if they're both equally qualified, and they come to the same. And it really is up to the person who's making the decision,
Yes, sir.
right? What I've found is that people, all things being held equal, will make a choice on who they're going to commit to based upon how much that person is like them. Typically, we want to be surrounded by people who are like us, or we like people who are like us, right? Which works to the disadvantage of the people who are perceived not to be like the decision makers, right? And so in America, most of our decision makers, people who are in the highest position of authority to make decisions around whether or not people will be hired or fired, are white males. And the people who are most like white males are typically assumed to be other white males,
Yes, sir.
right? And so what happens is everybody else has to conform to be like white males so that white males like them.
Yes, sir.
It's real hard for me to be like a white male, right? It's really hard. And so we have to dress like white males, right? We have to conform to that image, right? If that's what we want to do, if we want to be liked by the majority.
Yes, sir.
So there are two things that we're doing. One is we're trying to change that conception, and we're trying to help white males and everybody else understand that there's value in diversity, that there's growth opportunities in surrounding yourself with people who are not like you. Right? So that's one of the things that we want to emphasize. But the other part we want to emphasize is that if somebody doesn't like you, okay, great. That means that you need to create an opportunity, right? Which says that, if you can't get hired here, it's a great opportunity for you to recreate something over here. And I think the African American community can't afford to wait for white people to like them before they start creating the opportunities that they need to create.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
Do you think past racial issues contribute to the struggle of African Americans today? How can we grow past this struggle and make our community stronger / more motivated to create our own opportunities?
It's really tough. That's a great question about the past and how it's landed us where we are today. I think that African Americans have a rich history in this country of passion and growth and community and overcoming challenges, right?
Yes, sir.
Recently, we've abandoned a lot of the things, the practices, the values that have made us strong in the past. And it is that departure from some of those values that has presented our most recent challenges. To make this really simple, any group of people will rely upon its connections to each other to survive. Everything in isolation is either dead or dying. Okay? And we have a tendency. So African Americans need to embrace what really made us successful in the past, right? And it was our commitment to community and supporting each other. Today we don't have the same kind of commitment to each other and connections that we used to have. And so we will have to, if we want to move forward as a group of people, and I say that if we want to move forward as a group of people, not as a lot of individuals, then we will have to recognize that we need each other. And we will have to strengthen our bonds with each other through the institutions that we belong to. Anything in isolation is dead or dying, and usually institutions is where people come together, and we have to rebuild the institutions that have been disappearing in the African American community, like the African American church, like recreation centers, like neighborhoods and families, right? And so we have to rebuild those institutions, and we have to join them, right? And we have to have diverse communities to do that. So black folks will have to commit to living around black people, even if they get on their nerves.
Great question.
Okay, so this is kind of regarding like assimilating and things like that. Like, how can we not assimilate, but how are we supposed to hold ourselves as like a community and make sure that we don't assimilate to like?
Man,
be like others.
y'all got all the right questions. These are all the right questions. I can't believe y'all thinking about this stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
That has been a question on my mind since I graduated from Parkway North. These are the discussions we were having 25 years ago. And so you're in a rich environment to be able to start thinking about this stuff now, because by the time you're my age, you will have already solved it, right? It's a tough question. How do we maintain a sense of identity, but then also integrate at the same time? There's a question that African Americans have not answered that I think that it's a question that we need to answer right away. How do we want to be, what do we want our relationship with white people to be in America? Right? Do we want full integration, or do we want to exist as a separate group outside of America? And the civil rights movement did not leave us with an answer to that question. As a matter of fact, we were more confused after the civil rights movement about our place in America. Before then, we were really clear that we wanted full integration. We wanted to walk arm in arm with white people. That we were all Americans. We were together. After the civil rights movement, we were really confused about, do we want to exist like other racial or ethnic groups independently in America, or just as a fully integrated part? Now, the sad part is that we have not successfully been able to fully integrate. And being easily identified as an outside group by our color, ethnicity, and the way we look differently has prevented that. Some groups that have ethnic differences, they don't have to tell you. They would have to tell you that they're German American, or that they're, or whatever, because they look just like the majority group, right? But it's been harder for us to integrate. If we want to integrate and maintain a sense of identity, we will have to make our community as valuable as the American community, and expand our definition of what it means to be African American in America. Now, what does that mean? We have to decide that it is possible to be American and Black at the same time. That being Black does not mean that you're not American. Right now, this is what I call an umbrella of Blackness. This is stuff that Black people do. This is stuff that Black people don't do. That's a myth, and it's really killing us, right? That Black people are American. We're human. We can do anything, right? And so it's a struggle. And you'll have to decide for your own selves and for the people who sort of guide you, what does it mean to be Black in America?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have a couple more questions. All right, so what advice would you give a young African American that is trying to pursue more than what is expected of them?
My advice to the African American who wants to do more than what's expected is to change their perception that we need to be motivated internally, right, and let that show up on the externally, right? And so if your motivation after a certain point has to come from within, that when children are given rewards for doing what's right, or they're punished for doing what's wrong, those are external motivators, right? Adulthood means that you need to drive yourself, that there needs to be something inside of you that pushes you, propels you forward, because that is the most sustaining thing, because all of those other things are just temporary. And so my advice would be to find your own internal motivation, have your own reason for exceeding the imaginations of other people, because that is true freedom. If you're making your choices based upon someone else's expectations, you're pretty much still a slave, right? And so freedom is being able to embrace your own choices, your own vision, and act upon it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the question is, I think I heard it was, what barriers or obstacles that I have to overcome to get to where I am? A lot of them, just like everybody else. But it's funny, this classroom that we're sitting in, I had a creative writing class here in this room. And one of the things that I'm most proud of that I wrote was a narrative. We had to do some kind of narrative. And I remember writing about the 8th grade trip from Parkway, what y'all call East.
Parkway
Northeast, but it was east for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know how in the 8th grade you go on your 8th grade trip. We went to Six Flags, and I remember getting on Screaming Eagle, and I was next to this older white guy, and he was talking about how it was the first time he had ever been on a roller coaster before, and he was just talking, and when this thing started moving, he just like went nuts. It was crazy. But I wrote this narrative about that experience. But I translated that, and I mean, he was having fun. It would go up and down. It was great to watch him and experience it with him. But I remember writing afterwards that life is like a roller coaster, right? It has its ups and its downs. But the crazy thing about a roller coaster is that it doesn't have an engine, right? All of its motivation, all of its momentum is sort of built up from this up and down motion, right? That the ups really are preparing you to go down, and the downs are preparing you for the next up. And once the ups and downs stop, the ride is over, right? And so I've been very grateful for all of the ups and downs of my life, and they always keep coming, right? And so they're always around, right? From growing up in a single parent family, being poor, going to the and I don't know if y'all have little place. I think there's this place called Epic that kids hang out with.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? We go to our little places. We'd learn how to meet girls. As soon as you see this cute girl like Jordan, you're like, oh, what's your phone number? We were writing number down, and you get home. We didn't have cell phones. Everybody had a house phone. As soon as you get home, it's 10 o'clock. You pick up the phone and you hear this sound, click. Which at that time meant your phone was off. Mama didn't pay the bill, the phone was off, and that's the worst thing in the world, because now Jordan gonna call and she gonna get that doo-doo-doo-doo, their phone has been disconnected. And you're like, this is the most embarrassing thing, you messed up my whole life, Mama. Pay the bill, right? But you just, the drama and the hard times, the ups and downs of that time have been really different from later in life. When my first wife was diagnosed with MS, or multiple sclerosis, about 5 months after we got married, and we spent the next 15 years battling a disease. And she eventually died from that disease, right? And so that's probably one of the most blessed rides of my life, right? I learned so much, I gathered so much from that experience, right? And now I'm on a whole new ride. You know, as we were coming up, Ryan and I were talking about like running track and pushing my body. And so for the first time in my life, man, I'm running a half marathon in a year, in July, in a month or two, right? And when I was in high school, I couldn't run more than 2 miles without my shins feeling like they're going to burn up, catch on fire, right? And so we keep challenging ourselves with experiences. We allow the universe to bring stuff to us because we are defined and refined through our struggles. Yeah, and it's those struggles that have made me stronger to be here in this humble place that I'm in right now. Yeah, but still growing and still welcoming those struggles.
Maybe we have time for like maybe like 1 or 2 more, just like
Okay, sure.
specific questions.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you believe that on the high school level there are obstacles for African Americans, even those attending nice schools?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are enough challenges for everybody. But one of the great things that has happened over the past year with all the stuff that has happened here locally with Michael Brown and Ferguson is that your generation was walking around with their eyes closed.
Yes, sir.
And just, you know, the tragic part about having a good life is that you don't have an awareness of all the things that went into your privilege, right? Mm-hmm. It is my generation's hope to create a life that would be easier for our children. But the struggle for us has been to raise children in a free society. My grandmother and my great-grandmother were much stronger people than us because they had to work harder. And so they had a harder work ethic, right? They had a better work ethic than we had, right? My father and my mother, they had extraordinary barriers to overcome, right? So they were better climbers, right? My son is the laziest person on the planet. He's got too much stuff, right? And so our challenge as parents, and your challenge will be as young people, to see your privilege, but don't let that stand in your way of developing your ability to grow and get stronger. Challenge yourself in a new way. Do you need to be in poverty to develop discipline and hard work? Nah, you don't, right? You need to figure out how to strive even when things look good. Find a cause that you can get behind and believe in, right? Find something that you're uncomfortable with and fight to make it right. That's again, back to that concept of being freedom. Choose your battle. Choose something to put yourself behind, because there's enough stuff wrong with our city, our state, and our country and our world for you to pick up a cause.
Yes, sir.
And I think this is a good one because it's like specific. So for young African Americans looking to create their own opportunities, what programs, clubs, study habits, and things do you find to be like most beneficial for us to get into?
I'm not sure if I am the best person to answer that question. I think that you will learn the most by serving the community that you're in. I think that you should find a cause that you believe in and get engaged with it. I am a big advocate of expanding your network. So every young person should, every African American young person should join the NAACP, and you should get involved with the Urban League. These are very large national organizations that are advocating on your behalf, and they need you, right? And so we need to support those organizations both locally and nationally. When you choose your profession, get into your professional organizations. Even get into them early and serve those organizations. But I also think it's important for you to get involved locally. So if there's a Boys and Girls Club in your neighborhood, get involved. Not just so what you can get out of it, but look to see how you can serve and help other people. Inside of your school, get involved with the clubs and the organizations. Play sports, right? Get involved with the clubs and all the stuff that's here. Those connections are just like the connections in your brain, right? The more connections we make in those brain cells, the smarter we get. And so you will create a more intelligent society when you make more connections and get outside of your own ethnic and racial groups, right? Get involved with all of the clubs and organizations. I'm a chess player. I was involved with the chess club here. So all those trophies in there, right? We did that, right? As a matter of fact, I brought y'all 2 gifts. I didn't even know I was bringing these for you. Before I left the house today, I said something, said grab 2 books. And these are your 2 books. This is my book that I wrote called Character Chess, and it is all the lessons that I could think of at that time that I think that young people need to have. If you turn that book over, it's a good answer to many of the questions that you ask. These are the 10 character lessons that I've learned through the game of chess, or that I teach through the game of chess. And it really is the system for what I believe to be successful in America, right? Have a plan, right? Get involved, protect your community, make sure that each person is teaching somebody else. These are the lessons that I've learned so far and that I share with other people. So join other folks' programs, but then create your own at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's great. That's great. We've gone so far over time. Now we're